Russia is one of the largest oil producers. So why have so many Russian gas stations run short of gasoline? Once you understand one key difference, it actually explains a lot about modern warfare. If Russia has all this oil, why can't it just make more gasoline? Well, interestingly enough, oil and gasoline are not the same thing. Oil is a raw material. It comes straight out of the ground. Think about those wells you see on TV. A drill goes down, reaches the oil reservoir, and pumps crude oil to the surface. Gasoline, on the other hand, it's a refined product. It doesn't come out of the ground ready to put into your vehicle. That crude oil, it has to be processed in a refinery, a massive industrial facility that turns crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other products. And here's the important part. While Russia has thousands of oil wells spread across the country, it has far fewer large refineries capable of doing that processing. Okay, so if Russia has thousands of wells, why are the refineries being attacked instead? Well, think about it this way. Russia has thousands of oil wells spread across a massive country. In fact, many of them are in western Siberia, hundreds or even thousands of miles away from Ukraine. But those wells, they aren't the bottleneck. The bottleneck is the refinery. A relatively small number of large refineries process enormous amounts of crude oil into gasoline and other products. If one of those facilities goes offline, fuel production drops, even though the oil is still being pumped out of the ground. On top of that, refineries are incredibly difficult to repair. They contain specialized equipment, complex processing units, and replacement parts that can be difficult to obtain, especially when you're the most heavily sanctioned country on earth. So Ukraine doesn't necessarily have to stop Russia from producing oil. It just has to make it much harder for Russia to turn that oil into usable fuel. That's why refineries have become such valuable targets. So, is this strategy actually working? Well, Ukraine has repeatedly struck Russian refineries with long-range drones. Some refineries have had to reduce or temporarily stop production while repairs were made. Russia has also responded at times by restricting gasoline exports to help stabilize domestic supplies. Although the fuel shortages have been uneven, they have affected different regions across the country. If the goal is to make Russia spend more time, money, and resources repairing critical infrastructure, instead of using those resources elsewhere, such as, say, military equipment, then yes, it appears to be working. It doesn't stop Russia from producing oil. It just makes turning that oil into usable fuel more difficult, more expensive, and more disruptive. So what's the bigger lesson? The bigger lesson isn't really about Russia. It's about how the modern world works. We tend to think that whoever has the most natural resources has the advantage. But that's only part of the story. What often matters even more is the ability to turn those raw materials into something people can actually use. Oil has to become gasoline. Iron ore has to become steel. Sand has to become computer chips. Grain has to become food, and so on and so on. That's why refineries, factories, and semiconductor plants are so strategically important. They're the bottlenecks that keep the modern world running. And once you understand that, you start seeing the world a little differently. Hey, this is Frank with America's Geopolitics. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next one.